Dive, dive, dive. Yes, thank you for joining us again, ladies and gentlemen. It is so great to see you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for giving us a little bit of your time to talk about some diving and share some scuba snacks. Yes, we offer free double dippable scuba snacks for any and all that join us. We're here to talk about some cool fish today, some cool gear maybe. We're going to have a fun show for you and do what we love to do most, and that's just talk about diving. We can't go diving right now, so we might as well take a giant stride in and dive right in and talk about it, right? So I'd like to introduce our panelists today. We actually have some new people joining us, and we've got some people that you've seen in the past. So let's go to our lovable and huggable from 60 feet now. We've extended that a little bit to our lovable, huggable David. Say hi, David.
Hey everybody, it's always great to be here talking about scuba diving.
Thank you, David. And we've got our intern of the day is going to be Indy. Indy, say hi.
Hi, I'll be back.
Indy doesn't need a whole lot of words. His emotions speak for him. Yes, he's a deep individual. And we have a newbie on the panel today. I'd like actually for her to introduce herself. Her name is Hollis. Let's say hi to Hollis.
Hey guys, how are y'all doing? I'm so excited to be here. Love talking about fish and fish IDs, so it's gonna be a good little show. Hopefully give you some knowledge and share some, reasons why we love diving. Sorry. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I think today we're going to start with things about the cool little critters that we like to dive with, because there are a lot of really cool critters and cool things that the critters do, behaviors, and other types of symbiotic interactions that come about with the lovable critters of the sea, like Linky here, who is always a good friend of mine. We've talked about fish identification before, and we've talked about underwater naturalists, which are great specialties. But now we're just going to talk about the fish, the ones that we actually go underwater to look at and to be with. So while we're doing this, of course, please chat in, log in, let us know where you're logging in from. Let us know what your favorite fishes are, and we'd love to talk and hear about them. But let's go ahead and get to David. David, you'd like to share a little bit about these fishies with us. What would you like to add?
Okay, so I'll add a couple of quick ones that I really enjoy. One is trunkfish. You guys may know the trunkfish. They're sort of triangular like that, very odd looking. They look like they shouldn't be able to swim. And they're just cool to see, but what I really like about them is to watch them feed. They must get some kind of little, very, very tiny little creatures in the sand, and they have this little spout, like mouth that comes out like that. And if you watch them, they go down, sort of putting themselves down like this over the sand, and they go, and it's really, really cute. So I love seeing that. Another thing that's very cool, we talked about, we mentioned symbiotic relationships. I recently was very excited to see a parrotfish sort of nestled in a cave, completely on its side with its mouth going like that. And if you look, you could see the cleaner shrimp were in there cleaning him up. So it's little things like that that I think are really, really cool. As you get to know different fish and how they behave, you can really start looking for some cool, interesting things. There's a couple of them.
Wow, excellent. And thank you everybody for letting us know where you're hailing from. I see some people even from Montreal are calling in. Salut, ça va? Great to see you. Allison, good to see you. Wow, it's Southampton. So yes, we're talking about fish today, and we're talking about some cool behaviors of fish. David was just talking about the trunkfish. There's some really interesting species underwater, let me tell you. So let's go to Hollis now and share a couple of your insights on some of these fish that you like to see so much and dive with.
Hey, thank you guys. So one of my favorite things that I see underwater is how fish hunt. And one of the most interesting symbiotic relationships is between eels and most of the time groupers, but I have seen them do it with other fish as well. But it's mostly when they do it with the groupers. So it's really lucky to see. You don't get to see it a lot. So it's really special. So what the eel will do is it will go inside the coral and it's going to chase all the little baby fish that are hiding in there, and it'll come out and the grouper is going to eat them. It's just, I get chills even thinking about it because it's so beautiful. It's like a dance almost. Another thing, just kind of add on to David's thing about the cleaning stations. It's really one of my favorite things to see when I'm underwater, especially if I have photographers with me, because it's one of the few times you have a fish just staying still and you can really get in there and focus on it. Also, what's funny too is whenever you see it, everyone has a different symbol for it. So like mine's like doing it on the water, people think I'm doing like the hokey pokey, and then I tried to brief it before, but it's just always a fun time. Of course, scuba symbols are always interesting. So that's my favorite thing to see underwater when it comes to fish behavior. And I hope you guys come down and I can point it out to you guys. You can get lucky enough to see it. Thank you.
And if you do come down, then you're going to be able to turn yourself around, because that's what it's all about. Yes, folks, that's fantastic. It's true. We do come up with some of the most amazing symbols and signals so that we can talk to people underwater, because many of us are not able to actually speak underwater. So we do have to come up with things. Speaking of hunting, one of my favorite things was there used to be a Goliath grouper on Molasses Reef we named Mo because it was on Molasses Reef. And if you were not shining your light on a fish for it to hunt, he would bump you and bump you hard. But of course, you don't tell each other this, and this isn't night dives, by the way. So you don't always tell each other this because you like to get the reactions. And so I have lovingly been bumped by Mo several times. Sadly, Mo took the other end of a spear gun, unfortunately, and is no longer with us. So shame on you, whoever speared Mo. Yes, thank you very much. Now, Indy, I know that you are good at not only at underwater, but above the water, talking and dealing with fish and the different hunting and behaviors. What can you tell us a little about?
Yeah, by far one of my favorite fish, and it may slightly have to do with being an avid fly fisherman, is the permit. Normally you see permit on super deep wrecks or reefs or whatnot, but they love their favorite food is little crabs, shrimp, and small fish. So their hunting ground, if you will, are the shallow flats, in which the Keys has abundance of. So even though they love the shelter and being able to get away and get free in the deep, permit love going super shallow and just a few feet of water on the flats. And it's so cool to see them. You'd be fishing one day and the next day you're on Spiegel and there's a school of permit right next to you. And it's just so amazing to see how far they go for food and everything else. And they love the super shallow, warm water. It doesn't bother them at all being that hot, close to the sun. And it's just one of my favorite fish.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, it's amazing how we will go to such lengths to look and to just watch some of these things that we are so foreign to us that obviously we can't swim and breathe underwater. We can swim, but we can't breathe underwater unless we're on scuba, unless we come down to the Keys. But we spend so much time investigating and looking into it that sometimes it's good to have a little help. David, if someone were to look for some help on different fish and species and how they interact with other things, what might be some good materials or some good media to tap into?
Well, I would say a few things. From a PADI point of view, I would certainly look at Fish ID as a course and Underwater Naturalist as a course. Also, there's a lot of interesting stuff in the Project Aware courses. I know we're going to be launching the non-diving Project Aware online courses. But also, there's all kinds of Fish ID books on that you can buy or download. There's all kinds of information on the web. So it's actually, if you're interested in, you can just Google in Florida Keys reef fish or Caribbean reef fish, wherever you are, and you can get a lot of information about them. So there's all kinds of stuff you can do if you're interested. And it really, I find that it makes the dives, it enhances them in a way to know a little bit more about what's going on.
I would agree. Knowing a little bit more about the fish that are surrounding you, what might be an indigenous fish, what might be maybe a fish that you don't want to get near, something like that. By the way, I just saw Allison. You're going to come and join us in November. I think that's fantastic. Can't wait to see you. We're hoping to open up soon. November at least should be a good bet. Hollis, how about yourself? Where might I go for some more information, or maybe there's some more information you'd like to share with us about some of these underwater animals?
Hey, so like David said, the best resource is before you do a little bit of research. But the really cool thing about fish, and because I've been all over the world traveling a few times, and there's so many different species everywhere you go. So and even though it kind of looks different as well. So I think, or even the same species might have a different characteristic that they evolved for that specific place. So the best thing to do is exactly, you gotta look at every place you go before. I love the waterproof fish books because you can have them right on the boat with you. One of the troubles is diving is so much fun and everything is happening. No matter what you're doing, it's like pizza. A bad pizza is still good pizza, still pizza. So you get so distracted and caught up in things. So you might see a really cool fish and then totally forget about it by the next dive. And that's why it's so important to have your logbooks with you. So that way, right when you come up from that first dive, you can ask your guide or your instructor, like, hey, so I saw this square-shaped fish that had spots on it and a little nose. And David would be like, that's a trunkfish. Let me tell you some more about it. And you can write it down and do some more research afterwards. So that's really what I did to get my knowledge. Like after every single dive, I'd be like, I'll get my book out and like, I saw this and this and this. And it's amazing. You'll start seeing how much variety there are even in the same family. Like as far as angelfish, we have, so many different kinds of angelfish. Two, with behaviors is they'll change from juveniles to adults as well, with different patterns and everything on them. Like juvenile angelfish are one of my favorite things ever. That's how I would go about it.
Juveniles are beautiful. It's amazing to watch the transition. So Linky was just listening in, and he was curious because he knows for a fact that there's a way that you can take your advanced course and link that to your fish identification course with one extra dive. Isn't that right, Linky? Yeah, that's right. So, Indy, tell me something. When you're doing these types of dives with all these beautiful fish, what might be some kind of dive techniques that we might want to consider and think about?
One of the best ones that would help you just observe the fish and let alone the entire reef would be peak performance buoyancy. Just to be able to hover effortlessly off the reef, not having to fight it and risk touching the reef or scaring the fish. You can sit there for as long as you can and be able to just see everything you can, be able to find the fish you want to know. And if you have your slate, you can draw it, write down the characteristics of it. And like Hollis said, go back on the boat, write it in your log, and you could ask the dive guide or even look it up when you get back to the hotel, whatever the case.
Excellent. That's some great advice. Yes, absolutely. I think there's an underlying theme here about doing the peak performance buoyancy. We even talk about it during the Project Aware. We talk about it during the open water. We talk about it during the advanced open water. There just is no better first specialty to jump into than your peak performance buoyancy. Now, David, I know we were talking earlier about gear, and we've talked about the best first pieces of gear to purchase. What are some considerations in purchasing gear, and what might be a way to go about getting yourself set up in the best gear right off the bat?
Yeah, so when I first got certified, I went on a dive trip and rented my gear, and I sort of found that just wasn't what I wanted to do, and I knew I was going to be diving a lot. I mean, even a week a year would be something where I'd want to have my own gear. So I wasn't in the Keys then, so I couldn't come over here to Rainbow Reef, but I went to my local dive shop and just talked to them, and they asked me questions about what kind of diving are you going to do? Is it going to be warm water? Is it going to be cold water? And all kinds of different questions about that sort of thing. As gear has evolved also. I mean, there was a time when we all had jacket style BCs, and then they came up with back and plate BCs, and instructor who's a friend of mine talked to me about that, and I was like, oh my God, that sounds so awesome. And I got one of those. So there's a lot of different options out there that are good for different types of divers and different types of diving. And I think the best thing to do is really just to talk to someone who's knowledgeable. One thing here at Rainbow Reef, we obviously all love to talk about diving, and you've seen it on these, but if you come up to any one of us on the boat and be like, hey, what's your gear? Why do you have that? What do you think about it? We'll talk to you for the boat ride out and back about different gear options. We love talking about that stuff, and we really want you to have the gear that's right for you. So definitely talk to instructors on the boats. We're just there to help you out, and we all have different opinions, so you can weigh them and see what.
David, that is really excellent advice. Thank you. Yes, as a matter of fact, we are all gearheads when it comes down to it. And as I recall, there was actually a question about the double hose open circuit regulator not that long ago. And I keep meaning to get back to it. Yes, as a matter of fact, that's an Aqualung product called the Mistral. And that was actually produced for the Navy in order to help train their divers on the twin hoses when they're doing the closed circuit rebreather. But this was a training purpose. Then there were several people that took it up again because, of course, it was the original, or one of the original reasons was to have the actual bubbles coming out from behind you, which was really good for photography, for instance. The one downside of having your second stage behind you is that it's a little bit more difficult to breathe. You have to actually suck in a little bit, and it can be uncomfortable depending on what position you're in. Oddly enough, upside down is a great position to be in with the Mistral. But that's some interesting information on the Mistral, produced by Aqualung back in about 2007-8 is when they put that out. So let's say, Hollis, when you were purchasing your gear, were you mindful, or did you want to consider things like where you're going to be diving, how you're going to be diving, are you going to be traveling, and did that make a difference in your gear choices?
It absolutely did. So first thing I want to say, my name's Hollis, which is an amazing dive gear. No relation though. I wish. So the first thing that I really love photography. I really love photography. And so when I was buying my fins, actually, this was a big thing, a good piece of advice I got. Standard for everyone is typically black, and there's a lot of really good reasons for that, especially if you're diving with sharks and stuff like that, and you're doing more tech diving. But for me as a photographer on a nice shallow reef with lots of light and everything, sometimes the white balance can get a little off. So I have white fins, so that way I can go ahead and just click right there. The RK3s are my favorite fins because they're a little bit shorter as well. So if you are getting in a photography point to really get on that fish, you're not going to be messing. You won't accidentally maybe keep the reef as more as you would with longer fins. Remember, we don't have eyes on the back of our fins, and you're adding another foot on your body when you get done. So I like to think about that as well, especially if you're going to be doing more drift diving, more of a current. You want to think about what is going to be the best for you. Do you have bad ankles? Do you need a split fin? These are questions that are really important because every diver is completely different. Maybe you have a high bridge there and you want a mask that's going to fit on your face nice. Because if you don't have a mask that fits right, you're not going to see all the fish. You're going to be so distracted the whole time with clearing your mask or the pain that might occur right there. And that's why we have so many options in this industry, and especially at our shop. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Especially in the fin selection there too. So yeah, and also I will say most important piece of gear, computer. I believe so.
Yes.
Fins and computer. That way you're never stressed about, oh my gosh, am I within my limits or anything like that. It just takes a lot of weight off your shoulders. You look at it, it's doing the math for you. Yes, you need to know how it works and what the math behind it, how it got to that point. But yeah, I love my computer.
There you go. Well, it's too bad we can't get you to be passionate about anything here, Hollis. So yeah, I would. Thank you. Yeah. You need to know that Carlos walks around and records me all day long to get all these sounds and stuff.
Oh, so these are new? You have a drum set with you all the time?
Absolutely, don't you? You should hear my symphony. It's just beautiful.
I'm all about my triangle. I'm really good at the triangle.
They're really good at the triangle. Okay. Well,
Okay.
I think we're going to go to Indy because we just taught him how to do a square underwater and actually a triangle. But Indy, tell me something. I know that you actually came down and raided the shop a little while ago because you needed some new gear. What were some of the things that you found were interesting or important add-ons to your scuba kit?
Yes, I definitely went a little wild in the shop the other night, but it's great. I love going in there and seeing all the new gear and seeing what I need or just want. But yeah, I have the I didn't get my own gear until I came down here to Rainbow Reef, and I'm so glad I waited. I have the Axiom i3, which is a very different system than I've ever used, and I love it. It's great. It's new. It's something. It's a little easier. But on top of that, I've got a couple of new flashlights. How to have a backup. My last one went out on me. On top of that, I have the one thing that I found was great was the extender, if you will, for the compass. Having the compass tucked on my gear, nice and tight out of the way, and I could pull it out, the retractable, be able to use that, gauge where I need, get at my heading, and go on and just let go.
Excellent. Yeah, so absolutely. Retractors are wonderful things and inclusions to your gear. So something that Hollis was mentioning in picking gear, which was very good advice, is these masks. If it's a single pane and it goes right up here, you see it actually touches your forehead, which is actually going to heat up the mask and it's going to fog. Not to mention you look kind of silly and it's going to hurt after a while. But if you get one that doesn't, ooh, now you can see all around. And you can just go right up to those little fishies and see everything. So a mask and good fit for all scuba gear is, as they say, really, really, really important. So don't forget, you can actually go onto our gear site, which is divegeardepot.com. That's divegeardepot.com. You can take a look at things. You can chat with people. We are at a period of time where right now we can't actually be next to each other and talk about the gear. So if you want some advice on purchasing gear, let us know. Contact us. Send us a message in the FaceTime chat. That's not a problem at all. We will happily get back to you and talk gear, talk scuba. We'll even give you a couple of extra free scuba snacks for us. So we always have to have some scuba snacks to leave with. So let's go to Indy. What is one of your favorite scuba snacks that you'd like to share with us tonight?
Ooh, that's tough. That's tough. I don't know. Not even sure what to say to that one. Just in general, being in the water with the fish. I want to get into photography. Being able to use your PPB on a reef, you're just floating effortlessly, and for taking pictures of fish is just one of my favorite things.
The way I see it, there are two, if you had to categorize the two different types of divers, I call them shark divers and yoga divers. The shark diver is the one that wants to go in and see stuff and do all the really cool, exciting stuff. I resemble that remark. And then there's the yoga diver, which I also resemble because sometimes you just want to go in and just be and just chill and just look at that school of fish and be part of the silver dollar fish and just swim around. So I can totally feel you on that. David, how about you? I'm sure you've been thinking about a scuba snack all week.
Yes. First, though, I'd just like to. I'm sitting here laughing because Doug left a comment that he's found during the quarantine that his wetsuit has shrunk, and I think we all have that exact same thing. I certainly do not dare to put my wetsuit on right now. I think I would end up busting out of it. But um, I have said before that any dive is a good dive, and also every dive site that you go to multiple times, it's always going to be different. And I experienced that as one of our last dives before we got shut down, on the Benwood wreck, which is a very popular wreck. It's a shallow wreck, so we can take people there, and I go there a lot. And it was the visibility had really cleared up from the winter. During the winter, the Benwood doesn't always have great viz, but it was just one of those spectacular visibility days, and it was just sparkling, and the fish were sparkling, and the wreck was sparkling, and it was just like I experienced the wreck for just in a new way. And on top of that, talk about yoga dives. Um, I'm swimming along, and all of a sudden I see a flamingo tongue, which they're sometimes pretty hard to spot, or they can be a little bit rare, but other times they seem to be all over the place. But I've never seen one on the Benwood before, and if you haven't seen one, we're talking about looking up things on the internet. Google flamingo tongue; they're just beautiful.
There you go. See, there's always a little something different at a dive site, whether you've dived it 100 times or not. That's excellent, excellent. We had a question about retractors and cameras. I'm going to add that for my opinion, it's going to depend on the size of your camera, because it might be a little bit too heavy for a retractor. If it's not, then we've got retractors you can get either on divegeardepot.com, or once we're back open, certainly in the shop. The other thing that you could do is perhaps put it on a lanyard, but certainly a retractor on your BC would help out if it's a smaller camera, because you don't want it to float and flop up in your face, because then you can't see what you're going to take a picture of, right? So, Hollis, we're not going to leave you out. We're sure that you've got a scuba snack that you'd like to share with us. Would you please?
Absolutely. I would love to. So I'm assuming, this is my first time on here, so I'm assuming scuba snack means something that you just find delectable in the water. So for me, there's a few things. Even the boat ride out is something that I really enjoy, because how the colors will change as you're driving on the water. Like, and you can start to tell what is in the water based by the color. So, like, of course, that beautiful sapphire blue, it's going to be sand underneath it, and that really nice teal green, that's going to be reef. And I just love those colors. It gets me excited. Also, I'm kind of dated, like, with the light. I'm a yoga diver for sure. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love to go right in those wrecks and see the big sharks, but for me, diving is definitely meditative. You're focusing on your breathing and the beauty of the world and the underwater world. So sitting there, like, I like to, when I go fun diving, I like to what I call aquarium it. I'll just stay in one spot and just watch the life just go around me. And that's one of the best ways to get good photography shots and really get to know those fish behaviors. Because one thing I do see a lot with especially newer divers is they chase the fish. And one of the best advice I got, especially, when I first started, is if you chase the fish, you're going to scare it. You're huge. You have bubbles. And if you stay and you're calm, then they're probably going to come up to you, especially with sharks and rays. If you want to get a good shot of them, stay right where you are. And that way the rest of your group can see it too. I wanted to add one last thing about fish facts. I forgot to mention earlier. So we all know the butterfly fish. Well, we call them the Romeo and Juliet of the sea, because if one of them dies, they mate for life. So if one of them dies, the other one will starve itself to death, which is romantic and also morbid, but really cool fish fact. So yeah, thank you guys.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I don't think, Linky, would you do that? Oh, Linky would do that.
Oh,
that's really sweet. Thank you, Linky. Well, thank you for sharing. Yeah. Thank you, Hollis. That's some wonderful information. And yes, let us know. Are you a shark diver or are you a yoga diver? Or maybe you're a little bit of both. It's okay. We're talking scuba snacks. You can double dip. It's okay. So I would like to thank you all for coming out again for our little Talk Dive Live. Looks like Linky has gone off because he's going to look up some more interesting information that we can show you and teach you how to link some stuff to your next open water or your advanced or any other specialty or just dive course or just get you in the water. That's what we want to do. That's what we're here for. We're here to talk diving and have some fun. We'd be doing it if we were at the bar, so we might as well just do it here and share, right? So again, thank you all for sharing with us. Let us know where you're from. Let us know where you hailed in. Join us for the Project Aware. We've got one coming up tomorrow at 2. We've got at 4. We've got one coming up on Wednesday at 2. We may have some more, and we may even put out some other specialties like the equipment specialty. Yes, we could probably show you some tricks and tips to help you maintain your gear throughout the year so that you can get ready and then send it in for that annual inspection and then go diving. So again, I'd like to say a big heartwarming thank you from all of us. Diver, 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 down. Let's hope we get in the water soon. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.